Good morning, this is Tom. I'm doing a little bit of a channel update, and we're going to look at future projects, and I'm also playing along with vMix. So I'm clicking and looking at the screen because I'm trying to play with that, and I'm going to give us an update of what's going on here in the Napjack. So I'm still working on the K2. The K2 is partly done with the control bar board. I haven't finished it, and I'll be posting more on that. But in the future, I did mention, and I'm going to spin this around, in the past that I was wanting to do some building. So what we see here is, and let me bring up the camera control. Those crystals, my zoom is working, but it doesn't zoom that much. These are color burst crystals, the three on the right anyway, from old TVs. They are in the frequency range of 3 point, and I think you can see that, 3.5795. We are going to join the Color Burst Liberation, the return of the Michigan Mighty Mite. This little transmitter is a single band, single frequency, crystal controlled CW transmitter, and the guys, Bill and Pete, recommend building this for a first project if you've never built anything before from scratch, not counting kits. And that is based on where's my mouse? A 3.579 megahertz crystal, which is a color burst crystal. So I'm going to build that first, get it working, hopefully. That'll be a future project. And then I did share with you my book previously. I have to back up. Experimental Methods in RF Design by Wes Hayward and other authors. And they recommend in the book a direct conversion receiver for your first project. So I went searching online and I found this. This is an article written in 1968 by Wes Hayward and Dick Bingham in QST magazine. Now I don't think you'll find this unless you're a member of the ARRL, and you can download it right from their website if you log in. I don't think you can get it outside of there because it's copyrighted. But this article kind of set in motion people being interested in direct conversion receivers again. And it's a simple circuit, and I propose building one after I do the Michigan Mighty Mite. Here's the schematic. You'll notice here the tuning capacitor is 3.65. That would be picofarad or microfarad, which is an AM radio, transistor radio capacitor. Drawn a blank. They do that because they're easier to get, easy to come by, and they designed this circuit on that. And then it uses some transistors and an oscillator there. That is the plan. Here is the chassis. Some of you may recognize this. If you're a ham radio operator of any age, older than me probably, These are surplus World War II radio receivers. They were used in bombers in World War II. They date from the 1940s. They were sold out as surplus after the war. Many people bought them. They were sold by ham radio companies. And there was a lot of stuff published on these. There's a great series on these, by the way, by Mike. Can't think of his call sign. I will put it on the screen here. He has a series on these, and they're great to watch. But I'm not going to use this as that. I'm going to use this chassis to build my own direct conversion receiver. Now, before everybody freaks out and say, you can't cut up that old radio, you know, it's a piece of history. Very cheap. I paid like $5 for this because it's been used for parts. It's missing key parts. It cannot be restored unless I get more parts, which I'd have to get from another one of these radios. I have the rest of the chassis over there. I just wanted to show you the front of it, the top of it. And I have my little meter plugged into the capacitor, the air variable capacitor, to show you. .64 picofarad. It goes up to 400 and it goes down to 40, which is just what you need for that direct conversion receiver. So I'm going to use the chassis and leave the front of it on and use the VFO. Oh, I'll use the capacitor and the tuning, the veneer turning. You can see this was originally built for 190 to 550, which goes up into the AM range. 550 is the lower end of the AM broadcast, and this capacitor also goes up to like 1500 because it was made to be used for two different versions of this that go up to that range. What is missing? I'll show you. Obviously there's no tubes in it. These unplug. These are the IFs. These were made to be serviced easily and changed by radio technicians in the military. Here's the bottom. Okay. You will notice there are cut wires here. There was an old capacitor there somebody took out for parts. That could be replaced and you could get this radio working. However, you'll notice these three plugs. Across here went a bunch of coils which are missing. And I'll show you those. Here's a picture. Gotta get the camera view so I can see what you can see. That box right there, right here, is missing. That plugs in to it, and it's unusable without it, and that's just how I got it. So I'm going to strip the bottom of this, take all the parts out, probably take the tube sockets out. Underneath this I'm going to build the transistor direct conversion receiver, hook it into the top, and that'll be the chassis for it. I have not stopped on the K2, haven't actually worked on it since my last video, believe it or not. I've been working, and I'll probably do some more work on it this week. I have thought about it. I do not want to put a lot of videos up of me just stuffing parts into a a board and soldering. There are a lot of stages in that radio. I think I have it convenient to show you. But in the manual, there's a lot of stages to that radio where you do a lot of testing and stuff like that, and I'm going to focus on those things. And keep in mind, I am learning. I am not, I've said this before, my camera's set up for me just to share what I'm working on and to basically show what I'm doing. People ask questions, how do you do this, how do you do that? A lot of times, quite honestly, I don't know. The reason they recommend on Solder Smoke that you build the Michigan Mighty Mite first, followed by a direct conversion receiver, is to learn how the circuits work. You can see how basic this is. Let me zoom in here. I guess I was zoomed in. Yeah. Doug had asked me about, he wanted to see how much this camera zooms. It doesn't zoom as much as I thought. That's it, Doug. It does have autofocus, which I can turn on and off. And then the zoom. The zoom is not that great. I think it depends on the type of webcam you're using, how much you can zoom, not so much the vMix software. I'm actually using the software for the camera to zoom it. This is the Logitech HD Pro Cam, as you can see on the screen. So back to this. This is Bill DeMaw's, Bill Mira. DeMaw's another guy they talk about all the time. His Michigan Might he built in the early 90s, the guy that hosts Solder Smoke. And it's a very simple circuit. This is a coil wrapped around a film can. You use that crystal I showed you. There's a single transistor in it, some resistors. The point of this is you learn how an oscillator works, you learn how a simple transmitter works. Then you move on to a direct receiver, direct conversion receiver, and you build that, which is the one I'm going to build here. And again, it isn't just stuff and parts. If you get a kit, and I've done lots of kits, you end up soldering. You follow the instructions in the book, you stuff all the parts in it, but you don't even really understand what you're building and how it works. The whole point of building yourself from a schematic is you learn what it does. You learn how the oscillator works, you learn how the product detector works, and in that Mighty Might you learn how the transmitter works, which is a small oscillator basically with an amplifier. And that's my goal, is to learn how the circuits work, learn what the parts do, beyond just putting parts together, which I've done for a long time. You restore old radios, you simply throw in all new capacitors, do a little tweaking here and there, and you get the thing working, but you don't learn how the circuit works. That's kind of my goal. That's what I want to do in the future, put on my channel. Not so much a how-to, but I've had inspiration from Jim Leninis, who posts all his video raw, mistakes and all, and puts it out there for people to watch. So that instead of hiding his mistakes, he just puts it out there, and that's what I do. And if people want to share their experiences, chat back, that's fine. Understand that if you ask me questions about the electronics itself, I may or may not know the answer. I'm no electronic professional. Anyway, that's the rest of this video. I don't want to go on too long. This is also a test of my camera and the software. I'm going to zoom out back to my call sign. I'm still learning to use this. Let's do wipe. 73.